Well, good morning, West Ham fans. Happy Friday. Let's talk about the business of football and what's best for business. Everybody, Russ and the West Ham Network. Hope you are all safe and well. If you're new around here, where the bloody hell have you been? But thanks for joining us. Thank you very much. It's another week. Another week's gone. Thank you very much. Well done. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. Another week has gone, and obviously we play Nottingham Forest tomorrow. Notts Forest. It winds me up. Nottingham Forest. It really winds me up. So. Yes, what could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Regardless of what's happened off the pitch this week, particularly in the social media world, in the YouTube world, it's all about what's happening off the pitch, and particularly in terms of the dugout. Who's going to stay in the dugout? And despite the fact that, we must have listed about half a dozen names of managers who have been linked to the David Moyes job. He's still in a job. Now, for all they're saying, there's two options, isn't there? There's one, which is he isn't offered a new contract and a new manager comes, or a new first team coach comes in. Or the other thing is he is given a new contract at the end of his current deal. And despite the fact of whoever's been linked and all these ITKs and rumours and Bob, who's my hairdresser, talks to him and we don't know what's going to happen. But there is a possibility that Moyes is given a new deal. Despite the fact there's about a secure people down the road lining up for the job, he's still in a job and he could be offered a new deal. And there will be a sizable chunk of the West Ham fan base who will be like, why the fuck? Why is he given a new job? Why is he given a new contract? Can't you see that we're not playing good football? And the simple answer is money. Football, and that's what I always talk a bit about today. For me, football, it's called the football business. It's called football business, sporting business, entertainment business, but there is the word business associated to it. And that to me is always going to be, and even more apparent over the last half a dozen years, for example, the business of football. Any decision that is made will have some business decision put against it. For all us, as fans, we see the purity of football. We get funny when players want to leave the club if it's not under the terms that we think it should be. But for them, it's a job. For Tim Steindl, it's a job. He has no emotional connection to West Ham. If he isn't enjoying what he's doing at West Ham, he'll piss off to Liverpool. But it's a business, and football is unfortunately a business, and unfortunately, it is run by money. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through that money in a bit more detail today, looking at particularly the Deloitte Money League report, which was run and released quite recently. With that, they basically put everyone. They look at across Europe, and sort of look at individual clubs of the top 20. And West Ham are 18th in the entire, I think it's in the whole of Europe, with the 18th in terms of profitability, in terms of the amount of money coming into the club. That's, for plucky old West Ham many years ago, we're not plucky West Ham anymore now. We're in a different stratosphere, really. We're in a different realm. We're in a report which is the same as guys like Real Madrid and AC Milan and Juventus and Barcelona, and we bring in more money than Napoli does, and that's something which I think we we sort of, I don't think we don't miss the boat on that, but we sometimes miss what is running football, and it is money. You can see here the 22-23 revenue, 275.1 million euros, which was 200, say just shy of 240 million pounds. Year on year is a reduction of 9%, and actually that is pretty much all exclusively based on our league position. It's about 2.5 million a league position, isn't it? So the difference between the 21-22 season and 22-23 season was in the Premier League about 7 spots, wasn't it? I think we finished 14th and we were 7th for the previous year, weren't we? I think so. That's probably about it, really. But what's interesting is when you look how that is broken down, and I think that really paints a picture in terms of where we are as a football club, and possibly whether explaining maybe why Moyes is still in the job. Possibly. So that's how. So we'll just go the last year. So 2022-23 season, 275. This is in euros, million euros. 47 of that is the match day takings, which is pretty much identical to the previous year. And obviously, if you was in 2021, obviously we had COVID. I think it ended up being 1% because we had a couple of games, didn't we, in that season? But if you look in the 18-19 and 19-20 season, it's virtually the same each year. The only difference is it's almost doubled since then because of Europe, because we're playing games in Europe now. So we're playing almost twice as many home games, really, or not twice as many, but you know what I mean. So it means we're taking more match day revenue. But that's a relatively small percentage in comparison to the broadcast, which is 170 million, and the commercial side, which is approaching 60 million pounds. So it's big. It's a lot of money, and it's when you talk about in terms of millions, and it's in terms of how that breaks down. 62% of our revenue came from the broadcast rights, that being in the Premier League and the European rights. Commercial, 21%, match day, 17%. So 83% of our business in terms of what's coming in the tills is coming from non-match day. And, obviously commercial includes retail sales. Obviously people buying a shirt on match day will be including the commercial sales. But in terms of the tickets and the popcorn and stuff like that, we make 17% of our income. And we have a 57% wages to income percentage, which is very good compared to other sides, particularly in the Premier League. Someone like Everton, I think it's approaching 90%. So we're, from a business perspective, numbers on the board, we're relatively well run on a business commercial side of the business. People have been speaking about how much money we've spent on transfers, 480, 500 million pounds, whatever it is. The reason why we've done that is because we're making more money, because we're being successful. And itself is meaning we can spend money. We can spend £500 million and not be really worried about FFP or PSR. Yes, we were close to the wins last time, but that was until you take into account all the stuff so the bits we can take off, the academy expenditure, the women's football expenditure, any other bits and bobs we've taken off and then fell well behind. And as I said, in terms of wages to income, we're at 57%, which is very good, as I said. So, on a business perspective, it's what, and again, this is not me saying, oh, look at David Moyes, isn't he great? What I'm saying is, from a business perspective, we have had relative success in terms of league position, in terms of being in Europe, which has meant we can spend money on players, which has also meant we can work within our means as well. Look at Chelsea. They spent £1 billion of players and they still haven't, and we're still above them in the league. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, whatever happens, and that helps to, for me, helps to explain why Moyes is still here. Because on a balance sheet, he keeps the Yes, last year wasn't great from a league position, and we did make a loss. But that being said, this year we'll be making a profit, a significant profit, because we will finish reasonably better than 14th. We've also have the Europa League money, which is better than the conference money, considerably better than the conference money. So that's what I'm saying. Anyone who comes in, yes, me, as same as every other fan, wants us to play good football and get results. And that is something to aspire to. That is something we can achieve with the right appointment, with the right way forward. But I think, in all honesty, in terms of, and again, it comes down who's going to make the decision, who's going to bring in the manager. From a football perspective, yes, you want to have expansive football, exciting, but at the same time, this is what matters. Staying in the Premier League, and increasing our commercial footprint. That's why we've been looking at in the Asian Cup. That's why we've been looking at getting in South Korean, Japanese players. Remember when we signed Chicharito? What was the first thing we did? We basically rehashed the West Ham website to a Spanish-speaking version to try and capitalize on the Mexican and more sort of South American fan base, because we had Chicharito coming in. I think he might still be available. I don't know. We see the effect that South Korea, that Son has in terms of shirt sales. We have that sort of ourselves a little bit already with a couple of Asian players in the women's side, and to a lesser extent, we can see how that affects shirt sales, interest in TV rights, interest in coverage of the women's team amongst South Korean television and broadcast and things like that. So, that's clear. I have no doubt we'll see an Asian-based player coming in at West Ham in the next transfer window or so. Because, or at least one, because that will increase this number. And by doing that, they don't care that the fact that the match day one might decrease. That's what I was thinking the other day. I was having a chat with Steve, my hairdresser, and as I said, yes, I do get my hair cut. It doesn't take very long, by the way, and we talk about football afterwards. We were talking about, do fans really matter now? For a club's operation, not just West Ham, but for a club's operation, do fans matter anymore? When relatively, it's a sizable chunk, but 17% of all income is match day. So 83% of all income for the club is non-match day, is non-fan focused, so to speak, in terms of it bums in the seat in the stadium. Would, the fact of a season ticket holder, is a season ticket holder more valuable to a club across a season than having that seat available to resell to football tourists, to, I don't know, if a football, you might have a season ticket holder. Yes, you get the money up front, but they might buy a shirt a season, might be a scarf a season. But if you get, say, half a dozen, sell that ticket half a dozen times throughout the season, the person who's going to buy it for football tourists, they're going to buy 2-3 shirts. They're going to buy a scarf. They're going to buy a program. Going to buy a celiac. Going to buy a foam finger. Going to buy a hammerhead. And that's why sometimes I think that it's almost like it's to the detriment of being a fan. To be associated with the football club. I mean, we love it. I mean, that's obviously, I'm only talking from a business perspective, and this is not my opinion. This is just me looking at figures and coming up with ideas. I love West Ham. West Ham, I've loved all my life, and it is a massive passion of me. So much so, I'm here chatting to you every day. I chat to you every day about West Ham. Yeah, I get pelters. Yeah, I get people call me a stooge. It's what I love doing. I love talking about West Ham. I will talk about West Ham to anyone. The amount of conversations I have at work about West Ham, doing Zoom calls with clients, and we end up talking about West Ham. I love it. And I want us to play good football. I want West Ham to be synonymous with playing good football. But unfortunately, we don't make those decisions. And if you look at the numbers, you can see for a business, owners don't get into football unless you're a billionaire fan and you want to throw your money at the owners. People don't get into football to throw money down the toilet. They go into football to make money on their investment. It is a business. And even more so money now than it was in the Premier League. Now the more and more Premier League money. And yes, we have spent £500 million, but we can afford to spend £500 million. I mean, you look at those numbers, and it worries me because at the moment we're on a good trajectory from a business perspective, regardless of what's in terms of the style of play or whatever at the moment. From a purely business perspective, we're relatively well run, but that is on the basis of having a decent league position and getting into Europe as well. That 57% will change dramatically if we drop down the leagues. If we drop down, not even the leagues, in the Premier League, say we finish 14th again next season, say we don't get into Europe next season, the match day revenue goes down because there's less games. The broadcast revenue goes down because there's less games. The commercial viability goes down because there's less games as well. So that number goes up. That 57% will go up because we still pay the players the same wage. And that's the issue. And that is so when people say, "Oh, when there's if people are less risk adverse to getting rid of Moyes and bringing in a completely new manager of a completely new," because we've seen it work and we've seen it also blow up in people's faces. I remember going back and looking at Leeds. Remember Leeds? They were in the Champions League. They put shit. I remember going to watch them in the Champions League, putting shitloads of money in, and it all went to pot. They took a risk and it failed. And that's sometimes, and when people say, I talk about being risk adverse, that's why I'm risk adverse, because I've seen it happen. Yes, I've seen it happen when it works. When it works, it's brilliant. And so that's why sometimes, I want more football. I want us to play expansive football. I want us to win well. I want us to be renowned for having a good football inside. And that's going to take change. It's not going to happen under David Moyes. It's not. David Moyes, for 1,000 games he's managed or so, he has played the same way all the time. So there's not going to be a change there. But what he does bring, and again, this is not me saying Moyes in, Moyes out, what he does bring is solidity from a business perspective. And you can see why the likes of Sullivan like having him around, because he does. He's not going to get. Yes, we were involved in some sort of relegation battle, but we had the quality to get out of it and ended up finishing reasonably comfortably towards the end with a few games spare, plus winning a cup. If we didn't win the cup, I think we'd be in a different position than we were in now, because we wouldn't have European football. And despite the fact, where however you think of the Farmers' Cup or the Tin Pot Cup, or whatever, that meant we could be in the Europa League this year and earn more money. So, again, from a business perspective, that was a big tick in the box. I think sometimes we have and I'm critical of it as well. I'm exactly the same. We have a holistic view of football, as an idealistic view of it. It's the beautiful game and this type of thing. But actually, unfortunately, now business runs it, and it'll be business. Yes, it will be some sort of footballing decision, but business impact will happen in terms of a risk assessment, in terms of the likelihood of a new manager, how that will affect the balance sheet. It will do. It will do. And it might. And the flip side is, we could play really expansive football. We could play some lovely football. We could end up in the top 6, top 7, and be a much more attractive option to watch. We could be, and that's a risk, and that could pay off. We could play Moyes, and we end up languishing in 10th. From a ball perspective, they're all right with that. Because I think Sean said they budget for 11th. So for them it keeps. At this period of time is the longest we've had in the top flight in our history, I believe. And I just think sometimes. I like the business side of football. I liked knowing about it, because for me it impacts everything the club does. Not just West Ham, any club really. Look at Chelsea. Chelsea are in a position now they can't sack Pochettino because they'll go into FFP restrictions. That is ridiculous. They can't afford to sack him. And I don't want West Ham to be in that position. I don't want to be in a position where we have to have a fire sale to clear the books like Everton did. Yes, we've got the 7th highest wage Bill in the Premier League, and we sit about 7th. We're within our means. We're living within our means. And I just don't want us to get in a situation. You've seen it. You've seen the likes of. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Man City. We don't know what's going to happen with Chelsea in terms of FFP restrictions, in terms of charges brought against them. It might probably won't happen until next summer, realistically. But I don't want us to be in that position. We're in a good, healthy-ish balance sheet at the moment. We'll be posting a decent profit next season, with obviously competing in the Europa League rather than Conference League. I mean, any European football is good for us because it's more games. It's also more broadcast opportunities. It puts us in a different realm in terms of making the club more marketable as well. And it's great for the fans because they can have those away days. You know, they haven't had them for so many years, and now we've had them 3 years in a row now, and who knows what it's going to bring next season. So hopefully I can hopefully I'm getting across a different side of the argument. It's not, yes, there's, as football fans, we want certain things to happen, but I think, I don't know what I think. I don't know. I thought it was just interesting stuff looking at the figures. We're actually in a decent, sort of decent position financially in terms of a business perspective. Yes, it's not transcending to a side which is playing fantastic football. What it is doing is transcending to a side which is, I think Anton called it the other day, consolidating, and that's what it is. And I think it's, it comes to a point where you can only consolidate for so long before A, it becomes boring, which I think it is becoming boring now, and B, a desire to move on to the next stage. Everyone's moving on. Villa are moving on. Newcastle, not quite yet, but they will start be moving on. I think Brighton will probably drop back a little. Brentford have dropped back quite a lot, but there'll be another side coming through. We look at Crystal Palace. By all accounts, Hodgson's gone, despite the fact he's in hospital. I don't really understand how it works. They're bringing in Gleisner from formerly of Eintracht Frankfurt. We well know from knocking us out of the Europa League 2 years ago. They're trying to move the dial a bit. They tried it with Patrick Vieira as well. Do you remember? But that didn't really work. Bournemouth are trying to move the dial. Everyone's trying to move the dial a bit. And I don't want us to get stuck in a period where we're happy to consolidate. But the flip side is it's doing it within our means. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think. It's, again, slightly different. It's not about a rant and rave about the playing. It's about the other side of the equation, so to speak. But I'll be back lunchtime, I think, for a lunchtime live. Get your calls in. Come and have a call if you think you're old enough. I'm joking. And then we'll do a Dave Moyes press conference. And maybe you'll even see Irish Tommy doing a late show. If you like what we do, don't forget to like, comment, share. We've got a hell of a lot of new subscribers recently. So thank you so much for that, because it means a lot. It does mean a lot, and it helps out the channel and everything like that if you can like and comment as well. And until next time, take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith, and come on, you bloody irons.